Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and the name of this show is Let's Live with Thurman Greco, and it's coming to you from scenic Woodstock, New York, on Channel 23, our educational TV channel. And it's also coming to you, Let's Live from Thurman Greco, on YouTube. And we have a really wonderful guest here this evening. We have Anula, and we've had you a couple of times before, haven't we?
Yes.
How many times have you been on?
So this is my third time.
Wow, okay. You know what they say after your third time?
I don't.
People start calling you up. People start calling and saying, well, when is she coming back on? It's a really interesting thing. It's like the first couple of times, everyone's polite, and then after that they say, well, when is? And so that's just part of it. So, and of course with Anula, we're going to talk politics tonight. And we're going to talk other things too, because Anula's not really a politician. So we're going to talk other things. What are some things that you have a very short list? And what was the one thing that was on your list? You said you were going to talk about early voting?
Yes, so early voting starts October 28th this year and goes through November 5th. And then, of course, Election Day is on November 7th.
That's really soon.
I know, it really is.
So if we're gonna be having you guys every Friday evening, I'm going to have somebody on here, and we're talking about the local election. And so if you go ahead and vote, then you're free not to have to watch the show anymore. It's pretty good that way, you know. But I can remember when I first came to Woodstock, there were just 5,000 people.
Wow.
I know. The streets were empty compared to what it is now. I nearly ran over somebody who was chasing my car, you know, and it's just, we just didn't have those issues. We had 4 or 5 storefronts empty, and, you know, it was just a real quiet little place. And I decided I wanted to stir things up. So I contacted the Board of Elections for the state of New York, and I asked them to send me a bunch of voting registration cards that I could put all around town. And I thought, you know, it won't take long. There's 5,000 people. We'll be able to get virtually everybody registered in a couple of weeks. So I had all these boxes of these voting registration forms show up at my house. And this woman came by and she said, are all those boxes voting ready? I said, yes. She said, you know what? Your name is on a list somewhere in Albany. You order that many and you're well known. And I took those things all over the place. And I was so happy that Woodstock was going to have so many people registered to vote.
Yep. Well, I think Woodstock is a very active voting town, which is great. The primary was actually a very large primary. Somebody said, I'm not sure, but what I heard from someone who's running for office outside of Woodstock here, that we had the second biggest primary in a very long time. So that was nice. And I think that the really great thing about Woodstock is that people are very engaged. They show up. You know, people don't hesitate to get others who move into the town to sign up and register to vote. I know during the primary, I think I got 4 people to sign up to vote. So that was very nice. One transferred his voter membership from some other state, finally. And then a few young people signed up. So that was very nice. They just never signed up, and then they filled out the paperwork. They felt very inspired to get out and vote. So yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, and it's, you know what's one of the really nice things? Of course, we've got the early voting, so that makes it really, really easy now.
Yes.
But it never was a big deal. You know, they have enough chairs and enough tables, and the room is big enough. And I remember we had, when I first moved here, about a year after I moved here, a woman moved in, and I haven't seen her in some years. I don't know what happened to her, but she was a healthcare professional, and she hit town running like me. You know, it's like I did canine massage therapy, and she did whatever she did, and we just started going. Well, the time came from the election, and all of a sudden, in she came riding in a wheelchair, and her husband was pushing her. And of course, I'm sure it was so she didn't have to struggle with the crowds. They just wheeled right in, and she just voted and left. It was
how to skip the lines and get to the front.
Because she
That's
was
great.
still very connected to the city and the
Right,
crowds
right.
and the things.
Yeah.
And we just don't have those needs anymore. We never have, I don't think.
No, I mean, we've had some long lines during COVID. I remember standing out there and everybody was masked up, and there was quite a long line that went throughout the whole parking lot here at the community center and beyond. And it was all day because I drove by several times thinking, oh, it's gotta ease up. And it never eased
our
up.
population has increased significantly since then.
Yeah, it has. But it was also really nice because even though it was a little bit chilly and everybody was all masked up, everybody was bonding, talking. I saw two friends of mine. We took a giant selfie. It was kind of happy in a way, also, in some strange way. But yeah, I like that. I really like that about this town, where people feel very strongly about who they're going to vote for, the topics that are important to them on the ballot, and they show up.
Yeah. So this is something that we do in Woodstock.
Yes.
Which is really nice.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the things that makes this community so lively and so important. Mm-hmm. And so I'm happy that we're going to continue on. And I know on the Woodstock Democratic Committee, we all used to take our clipboards and go out, and they would give us different,
Yes.
I don't know if they still do that or not. They give you
Yes.
different zones or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
And mine was Bearsville Flats.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
And I loved going out there and knocking on doors and saying, listen, will you sign this petition? And I would, every time I got a chance, I would go. And then I can remember the chairman of the committee came to me one time and she said, listen, we're trying to move everybody around and give different, so different people will get to know us.
Very nice.
I missed that group, you know?
They still do that. So a little plug to Amy Fraden, who runs a neighbor-to-neighbor program. She is the co-chair of the Woodstock Democratic Committee along with Jeff Collins, who is running unopposed for county legislature, the county legislator seat. And Amy has a crew of volunteers. They go out and they knock on doors, and they did that during the primary, and they're doing it right now. And I don't know how she organizes everybody, but she hits every one of those zones, and she's got volunteers who take their time. They go knock on doors, they ask questions of whoever opens the door, introduces the candidates, and it's just a really wonderful program. And she does that, and me as a candidate, I am so grateful to Amy, because that's just an amazing process to have in place. I mean, kind of, she's got all these boots on the ground, and they're so efficient at how they do it, and everybody enjoys it, like you said you did.
Yeah.
They really enjoy it, and it leads to, it was really interesting because, I was at Amy's home and painting signs that we're going to put up and things like that, and I went to the grocery store in town, and I had paint all over myself, and I just needed to pick up a few things. And of course they go, are you a member at Sunflower? I said, yes, I am. My name is Anula Courtis. They look you up. And the woman behind me goes, wait, I'm part of Amy Fraden's Neighbor to Neighbor, and I just handed out your brochure. And and I thanked her. I said, actually, I just left Amy's, and you could see there's paint everywhere. And so it was really nice. And I think that it brings us together as Democrats here in Woodstock. So I really appreciate what she does. And everybody who goes knocking on those doors on their Saturday, Sunday, during the week, it's just an amazing crew of people. And I think they help candidates a ton.
They really do.
They really do. They're into this.
Woodstock has this reputation that if a Democrat comes through town, and for whatever reason makes it to a meeting in front of the Woodstock Democratic Committee and starts asking for help or whatever, if they can get the support of the Woodstock Democratic Committee, Woodstock will come through for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Woodstock will come through, and there are several very well-known political people that got their start because they came and convinced the Woodstock Democratic Committee, but way back when, that they were worthy. You know,
it is so true. Since before I moved here, I had heard the way that Woodstock votes is how the county votes.
Absolutely.
And so all these politicians, they're very smart to come to Woodstock because we are really passionate here in our voices. We're not shy about using our voices far and wide.
That's really true.
And I know people who are here in Woodstock who have helped people across the country in their primaries.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. If folks can convince the Woodstock Democratic Committee, they have a support system there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it works.
It works.
It's tried and true.
Yes.
And I, for a long time, I raised money for the Woodstock Democratic Committee, and I enjoyed my work on the committee, and I finally gave it up for the food pantry. But working with it was a lot of fun. I can remember one Sunday afternoon, very new here in town. I was doing reflexology for healthcare as a human right, and we were over in the family building, and I was upstairs, and I was offering foot reflexology to a young woman, and I was there, I thought, for the rest of the Sunday afternoon, and I was going to be offering foot reflexology to whomever came through. And all of a sudden, somebody called up from downstairs and said, "Thurman, you've got to go right this minute." So, I went downstairs, and there was the president of the Woodstock Democratic Committee, and she said, "I don't think you understand that today is Sunday, and we're going to blah, blah, blah." I've forgotten what we were going to do, but all of a sudden, I washed my hands off, and I was out there on the
She came
village.
and found you.
Yes,
That's
I
awesome.
was out there in the village green, and somebody had come here to do something as a Democrat, and it was up to us as the Woodstock Democratic Committee to be there, and that lady's feet can wait till tomorrow. And I really appreciated what this was not phony. This was, you were here for hometown government activities. You made it, and it really hits home here in Woodstock.
It does. And these are funny stories, but the topic is serious at the end of the day, right? So who ultimately ends up in what elected office, the qualities that they bring to the table, how those folks are going to work with people. I do feel that Woodstock pays a lot of attention to that. And we could laugh at the stories in retrospect, but I bet that candidate did very well,
Yes.
having the support of Woodstockers.
And she appreciated her
Yes.
support, and it was my job as a member of the committee to be part of the cheering team.
Right.
And so, she can go get a massage, or she can get homeopathy or something else.
Right.
But that particular reflexology station,
It was over.
It was
That was it for
and
the
I
day.
knew not to do it anymore, because I knew that I got a calendar, and I realized, okay, I do these things.
Right.
I didn't understand.
Right.
Because in some places you just don't have that much focus.
Right. Yeah. There's a passion, there's a focus, there's a determination that people here have. It's like, kind of setting your jaw and then going for it. And and it's really nice to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope that you feel supported by the Woodstock Democratic Committee.
Yeah, I do. I think that the Democratic Committee after the primary has been absolutely amazing. And we have two co-chairs, Amy Fraden, Jeff Collins, and and the membership on the Democratic Committee, they're amazing people, really invested in this community, invested in the candidates, and they are doing a lot of work. And you know, these are volunteers, right? I mean, so these are people who feel so strongly about the future leadership of Woodstock and beyond. Right? They're also going out there on a county level and you know, talking about those candidates as well. But here local, they're also putting on a fundraiser at the end of October, and I believe that's going to be October 29th at the Colony. Is that?
Oh, really? And what is that fundraiser?
It's a fundraiser for the local candidates. So Bill McKenna, Laura Rickey, and myself.
What kind of an event is it?
It's going to be a fun event, actually. It's going to be there's going to be a small donation requested at the door, and there's going to be some dancing, and there's going to be a band, and you're going to have a chance to hear from folks like Michelle Hinchy and some other folks. I'm not gonna ruin the surprise right now. But it's gonna be really nice. So people will have the opportunity to meet us here on a local level, but as well county folks and state.
That's
so it'll
really
be really
nice.
nice. And so the Democratic Committee is putting that together, and I believe it's 10/29, so October 29th at the Colony.
That's very nice.
It is very supportive again.
Yeah. Well, and was this something the Colony did, or something that who instigated?
The Democratic Committee went to the Colony, and they, you know, however they
negotiated.
Exactly, yes. So they, it was their idea, and I believe that they approached the Colony and said, "Hey, we'd like to have an event here," and so they made it happen.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you'll probably have a really good showing.
I hope so. It'll be, I believe, if I got the date right, it'll be one day after early voting, but I look forward to it because I think it'll be really nice to answer any questions that people might have. If anybody, during some of the meet and greets during the primary, we had folks who they wanted to know more about who they were going to vote for, because they heard so many things that were so opposite. And they would come to the meet and greet, they would meet us, and they would ask those questions, and they made their decisions. So I'm hoping that people like that come to the event on 10/29 so that they are able to hear from me and from the other candidates, and just get their questions answered so they can make a really good informed decision.
Yeah. Well, and then of course, do you have people coming up to you and asking you questions at all?
A lot. So people want to know how I feel about lots of things. People want to know if something that they heard is true. People are wanting to now better understand. There's some big events coming, some big things happening in our town, really big, and there's a big development effort that's coming our way right now. And so what I find is that people want to know more facts. They want to be informed. They want to know my position on the environment and or people, like where, you know, what is this going to look like? Zoning questions. Now, you know, this is great because people are asking really good questions about zoning. How does zoning help protect our environment? We've heard you say this. Can you help me understand that? And they really are buttoning down the information, right? It's not just, and then they're going out there and they're sharing it, which is good because, you know, these are the facts. These are the things that matter. And it's good to have an informed Woodstock, because we have so many smart people who come at things from so many different ways. It is like a privilege to be able to speak and answer those questions, and if I don't know, to get the answers and then to go back with those answers. And then we come together as a community to figure out what works for us.
Well, I know that in the project that you're talking about now, there have been, in the past, for example, they talked about a heliport.
Yes.
We had one here. That did not go. I don't know if you're aware of that at all. Maybe the heliport came and went so quickly that everybody forgot.
Yeah.
But it was not.
Yeah.
It was not. And it's noise.
It's noise, it's air pollution.
Yes.
You wonder about the frequency in and out. You wonder about, fuel and fuel spills and all those things that happen around a piece of machinery flying in the air, right, over your town.
In the reality, in the first go around, it was noise.
Right.
It was noise. The helicopter coming in all hours of the day and night, and even if it only came in the daytime, it was still something that people did not like.
I get it. We live in an area where, at night, people sleep.
Yeah.
And we have animals here who I cannot begin to imagine what would happen as far as the environment, including the animals, with noise constantly in and out, right? I mean, This is not something that people signed up for.
So the heliport you can forget.
Yeah.
I really think, I don't see that will go. Their reasons may be interesting, but I just saw that.
I think they're going to scrap that.
I just saw that happen.
Yeah.
The other thing that we had before is we've had a couple of apartment complexes, and there was some real concern in this community, and longtime residents, many of those residents are gone now, so people may not be concerned now. There was concern about, will we have enough water? Will we have enough electricity? And will our streets hold up?
Right.
Yeah.
And those are really valid questions, and traffic.
Are people asking those questions now?
They are, and people are absolutely asking all those questions. And from what can they build there to how will the street handle things? What about the wetlands on that property? What about new zoning is going to help or not help this type of a situation? People are asking about traffic. People are asking all the right questions. These are the right questions. And
what are they asking about the traffic?
Well, it's a little road. So what's going to happen, right? On 600 acres, right? It's over 600 acres. People want to know, what does the initial development look like? How many phases are there? What does the whole project look like? So that people can determine, well, how are people going to get in and out? How will the traffic patterns change? How will our roads be congested? That many people in and out just don't fit on the roads, right. Literally.
There's no parking spaces.
There's nowhere to put all those people, right? So these are valid questions, and the Housing Committee held a very preliminary introductory meeting with the developers, with one of their representatives. And I think there were really good questions. And what I appreciated, the Housing Committee actually said, here are the people who have these questions. We want you to follow up with them. So it was nice that they pushed to keep the dialogue going, because we're all one community here. And it's good that we can sit down and have these conversations, which are going to affect this town in a significant way.
Well, some of the people in this town, when I hear them, they've taken about all as much change as they can handle, and that many houses, right. And that many cars, and that much electricity, and that much water.
That's right.
And having somebody say, I don't think we're going to have enough electricity, and I don't think we're going to have enough water, and then having someone from the town say, just brush it aside. And that makes people angry.
I would agree. And to your point about water, this is a really big concern here. It's a big concern of mine. I've been kind of looking outside of Woodstock at what is happening with water across this country. And the levels are going down. There are corporations who are buying massive parcels of land that have a lot of water going through them, and then they own the water. Now,
Yes.
I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen here.
It is happening.
You know, in this particular instance, we have to wait and see and have the
Yeah,
conversation.
you're talking about specifically, but it is happening. I mean,
is
it's
happening.
in neighboring communities.
Yes, and so there are a whole bunch of people in small towns going to their local officials saying, hey, help us. These very wealthy LLCs are coming in, they're buying property, and our farms and our land, we have no water. And in many cases, those local officials do not act.
Right, they do not. It's not an issue.
It's not an issue for them. They say water is water, it's available to everybody, and things like that.
And that's not true.
It is not true, and I don't think that Woodstock feels that way, which is good, because if we have to have that conversation, we will hear, I'm sure, with the utmost support from the community. So,
You know, I don't know. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you would have had a march.
Yeah.
You would have had
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that's going to happen now.
I believe that it will happen. From what I'm seeing from during the primary and a lot of things that might have divided our town, what I'm actually seeing are things that actually unite us. And this is actually something that unites us. You know, we'll
Yeah,
still
it does.
pick and fight about some of it, but generally speaking, this is something that unifies this town. And I do see more evidence of community, because I think people are tired of the fighting, or many people are tired of the fighting, so they're doing things to come back as a community. And it feels really good. I'm part of some of that. I see other people who are doing that right now, and I look forward to building on that. I feel like we are near turning a corner, and I'm looking forward to it. So I still believe in that. And if we need a march, we'll have a march, right? So, I mean...
You know, when I first moved here, there was a woman here who felt like, and she was very polite to me, and she was always kind to me, but she felt like I needed to learn some things. And one of the things that she talked about is in this area, in the Hudson Valley, in Ulster County, it's very important for people who live in a community to drive through the countryside to the next community.
Interesting.
And I never heard anybody else talk to me that way. But she's really right.
Yeah.
She was really right. And she said, people need in this area, and it is true, we go to Saugerties, you know, we go up to Shady, we go to different places. And that kind of thing was a very good observation.
Yeah.
You know?
That is.
And so that's one thing that I hear. Another thing that I'm remembering this because I remember we got Woodstock Commons, and this town did not want Woodstock Commons.
No.
Woodstock Commons was nothing compared to what's coming up.
Right.
And this town did not want it.
That's what I understand. There was a lot of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
I am proud to run with Bill, who supported that effort. He might have lost his seat for 2 years over that decision, but he believed that it was the right one, and it was the right one. I think that is a beautiful community. There are elderly people there. There are children there. There are people who are going to school while working. I mean, it's just a fantastic community of people, and they wouldn't be here if people didn't say, no, that's the right thing to do, right? Imagine that not existing. And
Well,
all those families over there.
I was in love with it from there were a lot of things I did not want, but once they got going, I realized because in the job that I had at that time, I was studying for myself about a community. And one thing that separates a community from a ghetto
Oh, interesting.
is being able to work and sleep in the same town.
Interesting. Safely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Woodstock Commons allowed this to happen for some people.
Yeah.
That, you know, it wasn't long after they moved in, one of them had a job over at Cumberland Farms.
Sure.
And that one did not have to drive to Kerhonkson.
Right. That's a very interesting thing. I would agree with that. I never thought about it. Really interesting observation.
Yeah.
And how nice that people can live in the town where they love the town, they've got great neighbors, and they work there too, right? I mean, that is a community.
Yes.
I like that.
And of course, one of the things that makes the difference is the level of the housing. If you have $1 million home, you're not going to be working at the Cumberland.
Right. Right. Very true.
So Woodstock Commons allowed that to happen for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, listen, Rupco's great for me, but, you know,
I
that's
think
a
so,
dirty
too.
word. That's a dirty word.
I think they're great as well. I think that I've been in several of the homes there. I have friends who live there. And I think that those homes are very, once you're inside, it's so quiet.
Oh, they're lovely.
They're beautiful, they're airy, they're windows, and people love their homes. They just love their homes. And I see why. And, you know, there's one woman who I met in particular. She works a lot. She was so tired. Still stopped to say hello and very polite. And she was going to nap for a little bit and then go to nursing school. So it's also giving people a little bit of a break so that they could, wherever they are right now, some people could use that to get to the next place and then be in our community in a different way. And so I thought that was really, I liked hearing that. You know, I liked to hear her story. And she was a young woman who now has a chance to pay this type of rent that's a little bit lower and use the rest of the money that she has multiple jobs to put towards school. So good for her, you know, using this opportunity to just have a better quality of life, and she'll still be in service to community in a different way.
Yes.
So yeah.
So how are people in the community going? Are they for it? Are they against it? What is how's it shaking out? So, I mean, this is early.
It's early. I think that pretty much everyone who I've spoken to is not happy with the size and scale of this effort right now. There are some folks who are flat out against it. There are other people who want to have a dialogue and to see what can be done there. People are worried about the environment and the animal life, and some folks don't want people to be there. And other people are saying, well, we want people there, and so I think the town is unified from many discussions that I've had with many different people. There's a unity around no one likes the size and scale, period, end of story. But I think that most people are open to a dialogue to hear what are the plans. Are we going to have affordable housing there? Is there going to be a respect for the environment? How big is this? What will happen to the water? The electricity, I think there are ways around that, but I think the water, there's just no way around
The water.
the water.
There's no way around.
There's no way around that. You can't solarize your way to more water. You can't,
Right.
There's nothing you can do to get more water. That is a fixed resource. That is the new oil.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do have an awareness around that. Some people, I think the majority of us are going to be somewhere in the middle, and from the one meeting that I participated in as an audience member, I did have a chance to ask a question or two. It seems that the developer will engage with the community. To what degree is for them and us to sit down and figure out together. So yeah.
That's interesting, because when it was Woodstock Commons, there was no middle ground. Everybody was no. Everybody was no.
Yeah.
Which was interesting, and it finally showed up.
Yeah.
What are some things that you guys are doing as you run for office? What are some things that you are doing to get your voice out and to meet the people?
Yeah. What I'm doing as a newer candidate who still wants to get name recognition is I am doing as many introductions to people who I've never met before.
Wow.
So I ask people to please introduce me to somebody who I don't know, who knows lots of other people. And that's been my strategy. And then I want to know about them. I want to know about how long they've been here. Some folks have been here for generations.
Yes.
And then they want to know about me. And I have had multiple meetings like that where I've had phone calls, I've had in-person meetings, I've gone to meetings with 10 people in the room, I've gone to other ones with 15 people in the room, I've gone to one-to-ones in a field, I've gone to, I cannot even begin to express how many people here are, like I've been trying to go out and introduce myself to that way, because there's only so much knocking on doors that you can do, although I will be doing that. So in October, I will be knocking on doors and I'll be thinking about how best to use the days. But I also say, you know, my door is open. So some people have gone to friends of mine and they say, you know, I'd love to ask Anula a question. And then I say, please share my information. And we hop on a call, and maybe it's an hour, maybe it's an hour and a half. And I get to hear from that person and they get to hear from me. And I always find it rewarding, and I hope that they do as well. So this way we get to know each other better.
What do you think are some of the challenges that you're going to face on your board?
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That was a good answer.
I think that the town has really big decisions to make. So zoning is coming our way. Housing, it would come our way. The environment is going to come our way. And not on a little scale anymore. Like everything seems exponentially bigger and more critical. We're going to have, I think those are some of the big ones, like right out of the gate. Those are going to take some time. Those are going to take some qualities to, unify the town board around something that we can all support, right? And everybody's independent on that town board. That's the thing. I think we're going to have, I hope that we have a strong independent town board. And to me, I look at things like, if I were on that town board, no one's going to be happy 100% of the time, but we have big decisions to make, and it's not even about us, right? It's about what's best for Woodstock and Woodstock going forward, and the next 7 generations of Woodstock, frankly, because some of these things, well, there's no going back anymore, and like we said that before, like you can't go backwards, but now the scale is so big. We will become something else, and fast. So
don't you think we already have?
I think we've taken baby steps there, lots of them. I think that we still have a sense of community. I think that exponentially, some of the decisions that face this town board have the potential to skyrocket, like just push us leaps and bounds ahead into a whole different world. And will we be Woodstock? at the end of the day, yeah, but what kind, right? So I think there can be a lot of challenges to face. I think also that as a newer person on the board, the good news for me is I don't have the history that everybody else does. And I hope to use that to my advantage, so that we can work together. Like, this town board has to work together, and there's common ground. So I think that'll be a challenge. I'm up for that challenge, and that's going to be a mission of mine if I win in November.
What is going to be the mission specifically?
To work really hard to keep a unified town board so that we can work together constructively for what is best for Woodstock, and not have anything personal come, like, for that hour on that table, nothing personal, right? It's about the town, and it's not about anything else, and to have that really strong dialogue.
What do you think, when you look at these things, they're all so huge.
Yes.
How do you break them down? How can you? You can't, those are big, One of those would be kind of,
Yeah.
and you've got 4 and you haven't even stopped listing.
Yeah, you're right. And again, speaking for myself, we're fortunate to have people here who have spent years doing all of this hard work. And I think that one way to understand an issue deeply is to work with people who understand the issues deeply, and then to discern from there what are the facts and what are the opinions, and then to verify that. Right? And so I feel that listening, asking the right questions of people who know their subject matter, whether it's zoning, whether it's housing, whether it's the environment, that's really important. Critical thinking. So how to piece that together. It's what I do for my job every day, is literally what I do since I'm 19, in the corporate world, in my company. That's what I do. You get all these different pieces of information, and you put them together in a way that is creative, solves the problem. And it might not solve 100% of the problem, but if we take a solution and we put that in place, and then we work on the next part, we have constant evolution towards solving the problem. But we're also, in a smart way, looking at how our first decisions change the problem so we can adapt and be agile. And I think that 5 people on a town board can be an agile town board and work with those volunteers in our town who know their subject matter inside out. And beyond that, we have really smart residents. So we have people here who are so invested in ways beyond solar, ways beyond composting, and through town halls, which if I win, I will be working with the town board to implement as fast as possible. I would hope that we will be unified around that first decision. We get to hear from people more deeply, their areas of expertise, and we can build a task force around that. So we will get informed if we are willing to listen and ask questions and then put it together in a really smart, creative way. And I firmly believe that.
Do you think with all of these vast areas, you didn't even mention education.
Right.
You didn't mention transportation.
Right.
I mean, it just is overcoming.
Yes. We start with what we start with.
Yeah, you start with whatever it is.
That's right.
Whatever is there.
Yeah, and I think we get used to doing things right.
Does anybody in your group seek out the advice from the historical community?
I've spoken with Richard Hepner. I've spoken with some other people. Actually, our town has a Rotary Club now, 8 members strong, and another person from the I'm sorry, I forgot the Historical Society came and spoke to us about a little bit of the history of Woodstock and some of their history, and I think that.
I know you are connected with him.
Yes.
But does that give you any extra insight that you're able to use?
I think that it helps to, in a very interesting way, see that, some of these things are cycles.
Yeah.
So I look at some of what we're going through right now as another cycle. And we can learn from the past. Recently I was speaking to someone from the Historical Society, and we talked about the women's suffrage movement. And then, I co-founded the Women's March, and she mentioned that when she saw the Women's March, she was like, wow, we're still marching. We're still doing these things, asking for the same things. And it was a little depressing in a way, right? Because we want to see sometimes that we've moved forward. And we do move forward, but there are patterns to learn from the past. And so that's an interesting topic to look at, maybe in more depth, some of the past races, or, to see, what pattern are we in here? It's kind of an interesting topic.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting topic, but there's so much out there. I don't know if you're going to have time to ponder on that, right. Or to, like I was telling you about my friend that said, well, you got to have space between these,
right.
You got to have countryside.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, when you're on a rocket ship, how much space, how much time do you have
right.
to ponder these things?
Right. Yeah, there's not a lot of pondering. But there's a lot of getting updates from other people who've pondered, and that's
really,
yeah, and so it expedites the learning curve. It, through storytelling, for example, you can learn so much from one story about the past and patterns, and right. I mean, there are ways to expedite the learning because so many others have dug in, and they've put their whole lives into digging in, and they're so good at it that they articulate it so easily and clearly in a nice, simple way. So I feel very fortunate that so many other people have dug in that much, and I'm just naturally curious, and then I just piece the pieces together, and they never seem to be annoyed by all of my questions.
Thank God for that.
I mean, yes, and so it becomes a really great dialogue, and I always feel like I leave there with so much more knowledge, and it is that they know it so well, and that helps expedite things.
Does it help them move forward?
Helps me move forward. So.
Well, that's all that counts. You're on the board.
Well, not yet, but
but it's true. It's like we're all in this ball,
right.
And we're moving like this. Yeah. But where are we in the movement?
Right. Somebody's got to keep that big perspective and make sure that while we're in the details, the analogy of, sometimes people only see the trees or the only tree in front of them, but there's a whole forest here. And so the ability to see the forest as well as the trees, I think, is very important.
I don't know how you're going to keep track of all of it.
You should see what I do with my day job.
Well, that's a plus.
It is.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Because there's so much. You can only hold so much in your brain, and we have so much happening.
Yeah.
and then you have all these people going in different ways. And we have been on this tremendous learning curve
Right.
for about the last 5 years.
I would agree, but I go back to the volunteers, like repeatedly, they know what they're doing. They have put years
Do
of
they
their,
really?
They really do. I mean, no matter which volunteer we look at, the people who I've bumped into, whether they're on the housing committee, or I've gone to some of the environmental commission meetings, or we have a bear task force in town now. You know what? People really dig in. Because that's their personal time, and if they've been there for a while, they really care about that subject matter. And we really do have smart people who, like, they really dig in. And I think that the supervisor is great at picking people and assigning them to these task forces and committees and commissions, and so it's like an entire company in a way of people who know their division, right? That's how I kind of look at it. You know, the Environmental Commission has some of the smartest people on it right now. They're amazing. They're invested in this. They're planning, different events. Same with housing, no question about that. At least in my opinion.
To me, housing is so difficult.
And it's so, right, it covers so many different things, but they're looking at it from the forest perspective also, and zoning and policies and housing matters, and I mean it's right, and they've put years into it. So
And the people, there are people in those houses.
yes, right.
And right now, that is huge.
It is. Well, I'm glad
And-
that you
and it's
mentioned
getting
that.
cold
Yeah,
here,
it is
you know?
getting cold, and sometimes in these battles around, what's right, what's wrong, my idea is better than somebody else's idea. When people get like that, I think we forget at the end of the day we're talking about people who lost the roof over their heads. They are now displaced, and what happens? I have a friend who volunteers with family, and it's all over the county, but with Woodstock people too. There's nowhere else to put people, so where do they sleep? I mean, we need to keep that in mind. And then these big problems, they seem more achievable if we're thinking about it from that perspective. Right? It feels good to jump in and help problem solve and work together when you keep that human perspective in mind. At least I feel that way. It's like the human rights perspective, whether it's the environment or housing or, just the quality of life here. I think that's a really important thing to never lose sight of.
The thing about homelessness here in Ulster County is that many of the people never thought they would ever be homeless.
Right.
And they have jobs.
Right.
And then all of a sudden when you're homeless, it becomes your life.
Sure.
You can't get to work
Right.
because where are you going to go after your job is over?
Right. You have no address, so what do you put on an application? You can't really bathe.
And
It's
right,
hard.
and you start off, you have the job, and then all of a sudden you don't have a roof over your head.
That's right.
And people who have that experience, they know that it's coming. And you can see the fear
Yes.
in their eyes.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then they join the masses.
It's shocking how many people are on the cusp all the time, on just right on the edge of being the next person. And you're right, they did not think it could be them, but our middle class keeps being redefined here, and it's redefined at such a rapid rate that somebody's always falling from that upper middle class to the middle class to the lower middle class, and then right, and we've got elderly people who are on fixed incomes. We have to keep that in mind as we are looking at our fiscal responsibilities. We've got young people who are artists, and everything's so expensive now. One bag of groceries, it takes up so much money, and you're right, and we need to fix this somehow, and I think that we can if everybody is committed to fixing it. And this next town board is going to have to work together and work a little bit extra to get these problems solved. But I think that the public, and I hope that the public is more engaged in supporting the efforts of a collaborative, productive government, town government. So
We can hope.
I do.
We can hope.
Yeah.
It's just that you have to start your day at the Department of Social Services, no matter when or where your job goes, or school or whatever, and you're there. Oh my goodness, we're down to 5 minutes. Hey, listen, tell everybody your name, what you're running for, when we're going to vote.
Sure. My name is Anula Courtis, and I am running for town board here in Woodstock. I am the one of the Democratic candidates running for office. And you can vote for myself and my running mates, Laura Rickey and Supervisor Bill McKenna. Early voting starts on 10/28. And you can come and vote for us on 11/7. There are 2 open town board seats, and I'm running for one of them.
I think it's great. And we only have a couple of minutes left. And I would like to say that speaking with you is a very special treasure, because you're not a politician.
Thank you.
You are an activist, and it gives you a completely different vocabulary. And that's why our conversation today was what it was.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I don't want to be a politician. I want to be an elected official and gain the trust of this community. And I'm intent on keeping that in place.
That's a very, very special thing. And so I don't think, at this point in time, you're not going to lose that. That's your personality.
It is my
personality.
personality.
There she goes. Listen, thank you very much, Ellen. We appreciate
you, Ellen.
So much.
Thank you, guys. You still have a couple of minutes.
We still have a couple of minutes. You know, there.
2 or 3.
We still have 2 or 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
I would like to talk about, how did you get to be an activist?
That's a great question. I feel like I was born that way. My parents were poor immigrants. They were very poor, and one came from Greece and one came from Poland, and they worked very, very hard, and all the odds were stacked against them, but they had people help, and then they made something great of their lives and put me through school, and I always hold that very close to my heart, because when we treat people a certain way, we're taking away the opportunity that my parents had. And I feel the same way about the environment and animals, and I'm a natural advocate for these things and for people. So yeah.
I think that's extremely important, because it's a different, and that's good for you to be on this board with everyone else, to give it a different one. Yeah. Thank you again, Ellen. And we'll all vote for Anula
Courtis for town board.
Say good night.
Good night.